Okay, so I've been wanting to play this trilogy for some time now. Ever since the first Mass Effect came out, I think I was in middle school when the first one came out. But anyways, I've always wanted to play this trilogy, but I've never had time to play it. So now that I did get time, I was able to play through the entire trilogy through I think past few weeks. But yeah, I finally finished Mass Effect 1 all the way through Mass Effect 3. Uh, Before I get into the review, I'm going to give out my choices so you know where what kind of story I got. Um, I was a fem ship mainly because I wanted to play as a male ship, but my cousins told me to play as a fem ship, so I played as a fem ship. Um, my major choices, I I saved Kaiden, so I'm only going to review the Kaiden storyline. I don't really know that much of the Ashley storyline, so you're gonna have to forgive me for that. Other major choices. I didn't save Rex. I mean, I wanted to, but I Ashley ended up killing him, so I'm not going to go into Rex's character too much. And what else? Since I was a female, I romanced Thane, so I'm gonna go into that a little bit. And I'm just gonna go into the choices as I go along. So let's go on. So starting with the first Mass Effect, I'm not gonna go too deep into this one. Mass Effect 1, it plays pretty much like the other games, so um, I'm not gonna go into redundant criticisms with Mass Effect 1. All I can say is Mass Effect 1, it's a good game, but it's something I would not go back and play. And I'm not saying it's horrible or bad anyway. I mean, it was fun. It's just it didn't have the replay value for me. Like I know you could go back and do the storyline all over again, but I think there are some factors that make it unplay that kind of lower the replay value for me. First off, I played on the PS3, so I have the Genesis comic book in the beginning. So it kind of defeats the purpose of going back to Mass Effect 1 and replaying the whole game when I could just do the comic book and save me all that time. Um, so maybe it's different for Xbox players who are not used to the comic book, or just players who didn't get the comic book to begin with. But I don't know. Just for me, I feel like I don't need to play through Mass Effect 1 all over again if I could just do the comic book. If I did not have the comic book, I would still think about that because Mass Effect 1 was slightly irritating for me. I mean, it was fun, but the gameplay was a little frustrating at some parts. Like, I never really liked the weapon system. Um, they perfected it over time, but since this is the first game, they didn't have the thermal clips back then, so sometimes you were just firing and you didn't know you weren't counting how many shots you were shooting off, so you would eventually overheat and sometimes you would overheat in the worst parts. So that was a really irritating part of the game. And there was also some other nitpicks I had. Like I think the most major nitpick I had was biotics were really overpowered in the first one. Like especially you notice it especially during the Benezia boss fight, where one blast and you get knocked down, and once you get knocked down, you gotta pray that you don't die. Okay, but what else? Also, some other things I hate about the first Mass Effect. I didn't like the Mako side missions. I know that some people do like it, but I don't know. I thought the Mako was a little just like frustrating to play. Um, and yeah, I think all my major complaints to Mass Effect 1 was the gameplay. It was it was fun, but it was slightly irritating in some bits. And that's about it because on the plus side, Mass Effect 1 wa had the positive qualities of the other two games. as in the story. I mean, like that's the main thing that people think about when they come to when they think about Mass Effect, the story of the game, the this this like this Heavy Rain style of, I'm pretty sure Heavy Rain came after, but this style of game where you can choose the different options to move the scene along. That's the main thing that people come to think of, which leads me to Mass Effect 2, where they perfected everything about what was good in the first game and corrected what was wrong of the first game. And that being said, Mass Effect 2 is my personal favorite of the three. Like, the gameplay was so much fun. They removed the things that were annoying of the first game. Like, they took off the Mako missions. They gave you clips so you know how many shots are left. It's sure they took off infinite rounds, but it doesn't matter because now you know how many shots you're shooting, so you know when to hide and reload. What else? They took off the Mako. They gave you clips, and I think they also reduced biotics. Like they made it feel less cheap, so you don't just get knocked down from one blast. It just, the gameplay felt smoother. That's what I mean. Just like it felt more fun to play, which just made the whole gaming experience more satisfying than Mass Effect 1. And also, I think the story is a little bit more superior than Mass Effect 1's. Like some people may argue that Mass Effect 2's story is really different from Mass Effect 1. Like, it feels more like a spin-off because there's the main characters are like new characters. Like I think the only two main characters that from the first game that have a main role in the second game would be Tali and Garrus. Like everyone else is just there for like one scene, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you get to know this new cast and you get to know this new enemy, and you still have the connections to the first game to make this still feel like a sequel. I don't know, just to me it feels like the story, it's still as strong as the first game. Sure, it's focusing on new characters, but the new characters are still equally as interesting as the first game characters. Not saying the first game story was not as good. It's just I guess it depends on the person playing the game. I felt Mass Effect 2's story was stronger, but I liked Mass Effect 2's characters more. Maybe if you like Mass Effect 1's characters more, you would like the story of Mass Effect 1 better. It depends. Now, some downsides of Mass Effect 2. I know I said that they took off the some of the things that were annoying from the first game, but some things that were bad about it. I didn't really like the mineral minigame, I don't know if that really counts as a minigame, but it's when you have to like mine for minerals so you can buy upgrades. That was slightly irritating, but that's more of a nitpick. Sorry. I have more nitpicks for this game rather than actual complaints. Like, I could argue that sometimes the loading times were a little too long, especially if you wanted to talk to crew members. But that's a nitpick. And sometimes in the game, sometimes the cover system, you might find yourself like going into cover when you don't want to, when you really just want to run. But you know what? That's forgivable. I mean, like, it's still a fun gaming experience. So, moving on to Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 is very, very controversial, and there's very strong, passionate sides when it comes to this game. The side that hates this game and the side that loves this game. And I'm gonna tell it straight. I love this game. It's just I have to sorta agree with the controversy towards the ending. The ending was I wouldn't say horrible, but yeah, I agree with what people are saying about the ending, that once you get there, it's just you pick what your favorite ending is going to be, or what you want the ending to be, and that's the ending you get. And I thought it over. I think there's only two factors that affect the ending. No. It's just one factor that affects your ending. It's just the EMS. Because the EMS determines whether you can pick the synthesis ending and whether the galaxy survives the crucible blast. I think that's the only factor that goes into determining what ending you're gonna get. It doesn't matter if Kaiden survived or any of the squad members survived or the quarians and geth survived the war, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. It's just if your EMS is high enough. And I think that pissed off a lot of people because they felt like it was going to be like Mass Effect 2's ending. So going back to Mass Effect 2 real quick, the reason why that ending is superior to Mass Effect 3's ending is that ending is actually determinant on a lot of factors. Like, I'm not counting the part where you leave the station and a blast goes throughout the station stuff. That's not the ending. The ending is the entire final mission where you have to pick like squad mates to go on, like you have to choose a tech specialist and a biotic specialist, and you have to choose who's going to be on your team. You got to choose who does this and that. You got to make sure they're loyal. You got to make sure your ship is intact or your ship is like fully equipped. Like all these factors determine how the final mission is going to go. That is what we expected from Mass Effect 3. Like, we didn't really... I mean, it didn't matter if we got a final boss fight. We just wanted the ending to have all these factors coming into it. But in the end, when it was just down to the EMS, I think that's where a lot of the complaints coming from. I'm not going to try to defend BioWare, because I feel like the ending could have been better. But, you know what? That's the ending we're gonna get, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. And to be honest, even though the ending was depending on the EMS, I feel like the one good thing that comes from the ending is it feels conclusive. Like, there's still plot holes, but at least they can't continue the story anymore. I mean, how are they gonna continue it? Shepard died. Well, Shepard could die depending if you didn't get the final cutscene, but I'm pretty sure most Shepards died in the final ending, and also the Reapers were defeated. You know, so you can't really like continue the story unless you believe the indoctrination theory, which I'm pretty sure BioWare doesn't believe. So even though there's like loose ends, Shepard's story ended. So the one good thing that came out of the endings is the fact that it feels conclusive to Commander Shepard's story. That's it. It's done. Alright? That's the one defense I'm going to give to BioWare. Alright? I'm sorry. I'm reviewing Mass Effect 3, but I'm only focusing on the ending. Going back to the whole game, I feel like Mass Effect 3 was a good game. It had the good traits of Mass Effect 2, and it upgraded a bit. Like, the cover system is a little bit better. Like, you can actually roll out of the way now. What else did they upgrade? I think that's about it. Like, besides the cover system, it pretty much just feels like Mass Effect 2. That's not a bad thing, because I really loved Mass Effect 2's system. It's just, I don't know, it doesn't really feel upgraded from Mass Effect 2. Like, okay, what am I trying to say? I'm saying that the game does have upgrades, but it doesn't feel like a massive improvement over Mass Effect 2. It just feels like a slightly improved Mass Effect 2, basically. But even then, I can't really say that, because another complaint I had about Mass Effect 3 was, I don't know if this is a nitpick, but to me this is a major nitpick. Mass Effect 3's treatment of the story was a little irritating. Like, you spent all this time on Mass Effect 2 getting to know the characters and getting to know their story. And you do also the same for Mass Effect 1, but it feels like if you got attached to Mass Effect 2, you sort of got jibbed in Mass Effect 3, because a lot of the characters in Mass Effect 2 don't really get as much time as Mass Effect 1's characters. Like, it feels like Mass Effect 3 was the true sequel to Mass Effect 1. And there are some characters that I like to point out that got, like, that BioWare totally dropped the ball on. Jacob being the first one that comes to mind. Thane also. Like, I mentioned that my femship romance Thane? Yeah. His romance in Mass Effect 3 was, I won't say awful, but it was very unsatisfactory, I guess, if that's the word I'm looking for. It's just, it feels like with Thane's character, they didn't really go into his character that much. In fact, they kind of went backwards with him. Like, in Mass Effect 2, you actually, if you romance him, or maybe, I don't know what happens if you don't romance him, you can actually give him a, like, change his outlook in life. You can make him want to appreciate life, want to survive. In Mass Effect 3, he's back to being comfortable with the idea of dying. And it just, I'm not so sure what would make him do that. I mean, I know he knows that he's dying, but he doesn't have that same fear that you saw at the end of Mass Effect 2, where he's scared of the fact that he's dying. Like, he doesn't want to die anymore. But when you see him in Mass Effect 3, it's like he's back to not caring. Like, even though you romance him and he's like, he still recognizes that romance, it's kind of confusing what happened in between. Like, why is he back to this attitude? And also the fact that I think the second time he has an important scene, he sort of just dies, and that's about it. Like, I'm not saying he should have been a squad member or anything, but he was only there for 2 scenes, and then he just died. And not just Thane, but also characters like Jack, who you don't even get to see on a main mission. You only see her if you do the Grissom Academy side mission. What else? Like, I mean, of course some of the members get main mission stories, like Mordin, Miranda, who else got a main mission? Oh, Legion. I think I'm forgetting someone, but doesn't matter right now. It's just, there's so many characters in Mass Effect 2 that they didn't include in the main story. That's my main problem with Mass Effect 3. More so than the endings. Like, I was mad about the endings, but I was mad more about the character treatment. Like, I know that the characters in Mass Effect 1 had to be focused on, but it just felt like they were slightly rushing with the story, that they had to introduce the character and they had to move on. It was just really frustrating to watch. And that's my main complaint about Mass Effect 3. But on the plus side, it has the pluses on Mass Effect 2. Don't think this is just a major, like, rant on Mass Effect 3. It's not, alright? I like Mass Effect 3, okay? I'm putting that on the record. I like Mass Effect 3. I have my complaints with it. In fact, I think I have the most complaints with Mass Effect 3. But I liked it, okay? So I think that sums up my review of all 3 games. Mass Effect 1, I liked it, but I had some issues with the gameplay. Mass Effect 2, totally liked it. Have slight nitpicks, but overall, I think it's the best in the series. I would give Mass Effect 2 a perfect 10, okay? Perfect 10 out of 10. It's the best game I've ever played, to be honest. And Mass Effect 3, I have major complaints about Mass Effect 3 with character development and character development and the ending. But you know what? Overall, it was an enjoyable game. All right, so maybe like an 8 out of 10. You know, and that's my review of the Mass Effect trilogy. It was a very fun experience. I probably won't replay Mass Effect 3 mainly because now I know how it ends. It kind of feels like I don't really need to go through it again. I might replay Mass Effect 2, but that's just me. So, yeah. I like the Mass Effect trilogy, alright?